What's the creepiest thing you've seen other families do? Had a friend named Kent in 4th grade. His family was messed up. His mom was in prison for trying to kill him and his little sisters by locking them in their house and setting it on fire. Kent saved his sister's lives but was burnt on 90% of his body. He had masks, special sleeves for his legs and arms. It was horrible for him. Other kids were weirded out by him, but I thought it was so unfair how kids treated him because they didn't understand. Hell, my own stepmother had beat the shit out of me 100 times by that age. But what happened the one night I stayed over at Kent's house will forever be etched in my mind. It was a normal weekend night. We had a Super Nintendo, a large pizza, pogs, and a whole basement to ourselves. We eat, drink, play till we pass out. In the middle of the night his little sister comes running down the basement steps crying hysterically and peed herself and is shaking, having a full-blown panic attack. Once I wake up and see Kent is not waking up, I realize upstairs sounds like a bowling alley or a bar fight. I can't get Rose to calm down, and Kent won't wake up, so I go searching for an adult. Up the basement steps is the dining room, and as I open the door I see Kent's dad and his new wife covered in blood, coke, literally trying to kill each other. Neither really had clothes on, neither noticed me, and they were out to kill each other. What did I do? Turned around and went back downstairs and sat with his sister until she fell asleep. Woke up the next day and they acted like nothing happened. The house was cleaned up. Both of them looked, well, better than the night before. Served the kids donuts like it was any normal Sunday morning. I told my dad every detail of the story when I got home, and he looked sick. When I was done, he went and told the story to several people who ended up finding out Kent's dad was a fairly big time drug dealer and woman beater. Kent moved away shortly after that, and I've never heard a thing about him since. I still wonder to this day if him and his sisters are okay. And that's the story of the weirdest shit I ever saw another family do. Got plenty more stories, but that one bothers me most. When I was a kid, back in the early 80s, my brother and I were around 6 and 8 years old. There was a family that lived 2 blocks down with kids the exact same age. We used to play, but my mom was very strict that we had to always leave by a specific time. This was the early 80s and parents just weren't too strict about when kids had to get home. But if we were going to this house, mom was rather adamant. It was even weirder because every time we went to leave, the kids would beg us to stay. It got a little weird and all I remember is we just quit going over there. Few years back, I asked mom about that and why that family was so weird. Apparently, the time we had to leave was generally right before their dad got home from work. Dad was mean, angry, and a raging alcoholic. Those kids got the snot beat out of them every night, but always in a way that it was hidden by their clothes. If we were there when dad got home, the beatings got delayed until we left. My mom apparently found out about it after the dad beat one of the children to death and the abuse became common knowledge, but prior to that mom said she just had a weird vibe about the dad and didn't want us around him. I used to babysit my neighbor's kids every weekday during the summer from 8 to 5. The girls were 4 and 6 months and pretty easygoing kids. The parents paid well and were really nice people. One Friday though, the mother asked me if I could babysit Saturday night from 5 PM until 1 PM the next day. I told her sure and showed up at 5 the next day. Everything was fine. I ended up sleeping on the sofa. I woke up at 8 AM to her husband sitting on a chair in the living room just staring off into space. I felt really uncomfortable and said hey. I thought I was working until 1. He turned his head real slow, looked at me and goes, no, you can go. I asked him where his wife was and he said she'll be here soon. He sounded so monotone and had absolutely no expression. The girls' rooms were upstairs and you could see their bedroom doors from the living room. He just kept staring at them. IDKY, but I didn't feel comfortable leaving them alone with him, so I woke them up and just started making them breakfast. The man did not move or talk, just watched me. He eventually said, you can leave. I'll still pay you for the hours we originally agreed on. I texted my mom and told her husband's home. He's freaking me out. My mom walked over and his attitude changed. He went back to being the typical happy friendly neighbor that I first met. After some casual conversation, my mom told me it was time to go. Husband was home The guy paid me and we left. Soon after I saw the mother pull into the driveway. My mom told me I was overreacting and he wasn't acting weird. Yeah, because the minute she walked in he like flipped a switch and went back to being normal. I saw the kids the next day playing outside. Everything seemed fine. It was just weird. In the early 2000s, a 10-year-old ran to see his dad get off the train after dad was done working. Their family always met my fam there on the affluent suburban Chicago platform. Us young moms with 4 toddlers/young children each, and the dads worked together to welcome the fathers home during the nice months of weather. Their oldest skinned his knee when he tripped and was crying. Oh, poor little guy. Then the weirdest thing happened. Okay, so maybe not creepy, but wait for it. Their family formed a tight circle on the train platform, linking arms. This was done so the 10-year-old boy could nurse from his mother to calm or placate his skinned knee. Not sure what to call the reason for our rapid departure. Respect? Not really. Privacy? Yes, because we were weirded the F out. Bingo. Fine. Over. Done with. Whatever. Not my family. None of my business. Couple years later, that woman told me she was pregnant with their 6th child. Oh joy. And she was talking about planting another placenta tree and didn't know where to put it in their backyard with the 5 other placenta trees. What is a placenta tree? Well, since you asked, it's some ritual after a home birth that the afterbirth goes into a pre-dug pit. Later on, you plant a tree seedling over it and the tree uses the nutrients of the placenta to grow. Okay, again, fine. To each their own. A year after the birth of the child, that family was moving. The mom and I were talking about logistics of buying/selling in that housing market while we waited with the kids for our husbands at the train platform. And that's when she said it. Oh, we rent our house, so this will be easy for us to move. What? They planted 6 trees in their yard that have human DNA underneath them. All I can think about now in the year 2021 is that some poor soul who rents that house or owns that plot of land will now be in the crosshairs of some forensic TV show how the guy who lived there isn't a serial killer from 2003. Ladies and gentlemen, do I have a story for you? So me and my friend, let's call him Dan, went to our mutual friends, let's call him Tom, house for a sleepover. We were all 9 to 10 at this point, but that's not the point. All was like normal during the day. We played games, watched movies, and even got to go out into the backyard where he had a massive sand pit. It was an all-round good day. Now you may be thinking, what's so bad about that family? Well, when night came around, our Tom's dad, we'll call him Bob, decided that we should have a fire in his new fire pit he just finished making. Me and Dan thought sure, because why not? We went out to the back and started the fire, roasting marshmallows and chatting. It was at this point I heard a bang come from the shed not too far from the fire. I stood up and went to investigate, but as I was reaching to open the door, Bob grabbed my arm and said, "Don't go in there, boy." I asked what the noise was, and he replied, "It's nothing, just old tools falling over." Now as a 10 years old, I took his word for it and left it alone. But later that night as I was sleeping I heard the bang again. This time it woke up my Dan as well. So we both decided it was best to figure out what was inside the shed. We crept down to the door and got outside, making our way across the yard, inching towards the shed. As we reached it, I heard muffled crying. Not like a person but something else. I went to open the door, but again I was stopped by Bob. This scared me so much I screamed before he clamped his hand over my mouth and said, "Go back inside." I didn't want to, and I wanted to know what was inside the shed. So I said, "No, what is in that shed?" After this question he tightened his grip on my wrist and dragged me and Dan back inside. He then proceeded to sit us down at the table and said, "I'll be right back." Moments later he came back with Tom and told Tom, "Don't let these 2 out of your sight." "Got it, replied Tom. We sat there for exactly 2 hours before the sun rose and Bob said he was going to drive us home. We gathered our stuff and got dropped off. When I got home I told my parents what had happened, and after a lot of convincing we went down to Tom's place again and demanded to see inside the shed. When he realized he couldn't say no to my parents, he opened the shed and inside was a dead pig lodged inside 2 massive bear traps. Worst of all, it was still alive. Bob explained that he did what he did because killing pigs like this was inhumane and that he was trying to save it. Bullshit excuse, I know, but he showed us his medical supplies and other stuff that was attached to the pig, who he called Betsy. It wasn't long after that Tom and his dad Bob left town. I never knew where they went or what Bob did for a living, but everyone I know cut ties with that family after that.